In the Bible, God has given us everything we need for life. The challenge is that we often find the Bible confusing and difficult to understand. We think of stories and events that occurred in far-off places long ago, and we wonder how they could possibly relate to the problems that we face day to day. We experience a disconnect between what we read in the Bible and our day-to-day lives. So we ask, how can I better understand the Bible? Hello, I'm Jim LaBerge. In this video, I'm going to explain the concept of interpretation and share how applying the principles of biblical interpretation can help you connect the eternal with the everyday. I vividly remember reading the Bible as a new believer. I'd always read with a pencil in hand so I could underline those verses that I found particularly meaningful. It wasn't very long that my Bible was literally filled with underlined verses. I'd find a passage of promise and insight that took root in my heart. And I read through books one chapter at a time, usually rereading each chapter. And I would underline those special verses. And gradually, those truths that I learned began to shape my thinking. It was a really good time in my early Christian life. I simply read the Bible, and I experienced God through His Word. And you can do that as well. However, on the other hand, I'd often read large sections of material that I had no idea what they meant, or how they related to those other verses that seemed to just jump off the page at me. Sometimes the Bible even seemed to contradict itself. As a young adult, I was pressed by the normal issues of everyday life, like parenting, marriage, and job, and I wondered what the Bible had to say about the everyday stuff I was working through. There were also ethical considerations. Doing the right thing suddenly became very important. The problem was figuring out what the right thing was. Now, I believed the Bible held the answers. I just didn't know how to find them. In the process of working through problems, often fellow believers would quote a Bible verse to me and affirm, this is the answer to the issue that I was facing. And often it would help. Yet just as often, those answers and suggestions left me even more confused. And looking back, I realized the problem, at least much of it, of the advice was that the advice I was given was really not consistent with what the Bible taught. But at that point, I had no way to evaluate what was being suggested. What I really needed was to be able to grow in my understanding of God through His Word. And what was missing was a skill set that would allow me to engage the Bible more deeply and accurately. And this is why biblical interpretation is so important. Accurate understanding of the Bible is based upon sound interpretation. The discipline of biblical interpretation is called hermeneutics. And hermeneutics provides us with a method of study that we can apply to a text to discern its meaning. It involves both the presuppositions concerning the Scripture and the application of interpretive principles to the text. It also helps us understand how our own thinking and prejudices can adversely affect our ability to arrive at an accurate understanding of a text. We'll begin looking at each of these considerations as we progress through our study. The point to recognize here is that we can unlock the meaning of a biblical text and make relevant applications to the situations we face every day by learning and applying simple, basic hermeneutic principles to our study. At this point, I'd like to do an overview of the issues that make understanding the Bible challenging, and then just summarize briefly how hermeneutic principles can help us overcome those challenges. When we read the Bible, there are four significant gaps between ourselves and the original audiences. There's the gap of language, of culture, geography, and chronology. As we progress through this study, you'll learn how the principles of biblical interpretation can help close the distance that each one of these gaps creates. Our study will enable us to hear the message more like the original audience. You'll learn to identify the underlying principles communicated through a text, and then make relevant applications to your own life. Hermeneutics can help us overcome the challenges by providing accurate presuppositions about the Scripture, recognizing our prejudices and how they can hinder us from understanding a text. They can provide valid interpretive principles that we apply in the exegetical process, and then provide a repeatable methodology of interpretation. Hermeneutics also helps us to realize that we should understand each text in light of its own biblical genre. This is very important in the interpretive process. God has indeed promised us everything we need for life through a growing relationship with Himself. We grow closer to Him as we know Him better. In large measure, this happens as we engage Him through the study of His Word. I look forward to helping you know Him better by being better equipped to understand the truths of His Word and apply them to your life and the situations you face. May God richly bless you.